Let me ask you about your position on the missile strikes in Syria. Were you in support of President Trump's decision to launch those missile strikes?
Well, first of all, I wish I would have known they were coming. I think he should have informed Congress, not just the leadership. But I think they were proportional. I think they sent a signal. But moving forward, we really need to find out what the longer-term plan is and how we're going to develop that in association with the Congress.
So, are you saying if President Trump would have gone to Congress and sought congressional approval, would you have voted for those same missile strikes?
I don't know the particulars on the longer range process. So he took authority under the authority he has, but he bombed a sovereign country, and that's an act of war, and so we have to treat that a little bit differently. They weren't an immediate threat to us. What happened over there is just morally reprehensible, but sad things happen. We just need to make sure that we address the needs of the American people also.
So you touched on this a little bit about a long-range plan for Syria. Do you see a long-range plan with Syria, including Assad still at the helm here?
I don't see Mr. Assad at the helm at all. I think that what he's done to his own people is terrible, and that he needs to be not part of any of long-term part of that country.
So you support a regime change?
I do.
Okay, you support a regime change. Talking about that long-term plan again, would you support U.S. troops on the ground in Syria?
Well, we have troops on the ground right now. I don't. That's part of the problem with where we're at right now. We do not have a comprehensive plan with our NATO members, with Turkey, who's a part of the Syrian border, with Israel and Jordan to the south. This is a complicated area of the world, and between having Russia in there, Iran in there, and other terrorist groups, it's a complicated thing. But our troops should only be sent if it's a immediate threat to the United States.
So you're supporting kind of a broader coalition to go in there and possibly take Assad out?
Exactly.
Okay. So you mentioned Russia too. It's been reported by several outlets. Do you think that Russia had prior knowledge that there would be a chemical attack on the Syrian people? Did Russia know? I
don't have the data on which to make a decision one way or another. I haven't seen anything in the news that would indicate that. Obviously, there's always a lot of talk afterwards, and Russia's been talking about our implications of we shouldn't have done it. But until there's proof, I'm not going to make an accusation.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about Russia and President Trump. How comfortable are you with his connections to that country?
Well, I wish I knew more about them, and I think the American people do also. We deserve the right, whether I have relationships with Russians or anybody else, when we're in a position where we are going to make decisions on behalf of the American people, we deserve to let them know our background as it relates to the people we're going to be negotiating with and potentially adversaries.
Okay. Let's talk about this now. With Russia and with Flynn and some of the other folks that President Trump has decided to surround himself with, does that give you pause? Does that make you uncomfortable at all?
Well, Mr. Flynn, it was found out early, luckily, that this association had occurred. There are a couple of people within his campaign that are not part of his administration, so the campaign side of it is something that will be investigated by the committees. It always is concerning to me when there's an investigation going on where we have our top intelligence and investigators in the country saying that that things cannot be taken out of the process at this point in time. So we need to get this over with for the sake of the country.
What do you think Russia's role was in the election, in the U.S. election?
Well, obviously, I think they definitely put information forward that in relationship with WikiLeaks to make sure that one side had more information out there than the other as far as it relates to negative information of the candidate.
I want to move to healthcare right now. I know that you went on the record by not supporting the Trump-Ryan overhaul, the repeal and replace of Obamacare. Let me ask you this, so would you support repealing Obamacare for a different law going into effect?
I don't care what they call it. there's need to make sure that we have comprehensive health care in this nation. But I thought the way that we were totally left out of this discussion process. I'm involved in two different groups that are trying to work with Republicans to find areas that we can agree on. And this was not ever something that was brought to me as far as can you help us out and work with us. And I'm sure our leadership, many of us have asked that we be included in the process. So until they get their act together and can find compromise within their caucus that there's a need, but a plan that was going to have more people uninsured than basically take 20 million people out of insurance and add another 4 million that are uninsured, so 24 million people. The math is pretty easy. The plan was not going to work for America.
You were particularly concerned that it could impact the folks in your district a lot, this new plan, right?
Well, Medicaid expansion was a target of the plan, and it would have been gone away by 2020. That would have left hundreds of thousands of Arizonans, and rural areas are particularly in need of the Medicaid expansion process and that type of coverage. And so if you're representing rural Arizona or rural America, I don't see how you can be in favor of something that's going to hurt your hospital system, your physicians network, and also your constituents.
Okay. So earlier we were talking about Obamacare. When you first heard that premiums could go up as much as 116% for Arizonans registered for Obamacare last year, and that would be the highest premium increase in the U.S., what was your first reaction when you heard that?
Well, first of all, my reaction was, what's this? Is that for real? And the 116% increase for that county, Pinal County, was real. That's in my district. But we need to realize that most of those people receive a subsidy. And so their raise was not 116%. It was a very low percentage. And I recall from my legislative days, prior to the Affordable Care Act, and we have to have a discussion of this, that there were rate increases of those insured in our state on consecutive years of 15, 20, up to 24%. And so it was an indication that something has to be done.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Besides the 116%, people were upset too that some counties only had one provider. So how do you think we get more providers on board too?
Well, that's exactly why I think something has to be done. I've expressed that view all along, even when I was running for office. The Affordable Care Act had some elements in it that needed to be reviewed and changed if we were able to find solutions to that. But you know, my reaction to 116% in a county and just one insurer, that's not acceptable. And that's why change has to occur.
So, and just to make sure I'm getting this correct, you would support repealing Obamacare if you felt like something better was in its place, and the Trump-Ryan plan, in your opinion, was not that something better?
Well, it was obvious, first of all, that the Trump-Ryan plan was not going to repeal Obamacare. It was taking elements out of Obamacare, many of which the American people have shown that they prefer to be insured under, including pre-existing conditions and 26-year-olds, sons and daughters at home. So a lot of those elements would have stayed. We just need to make sure that we're addressing the issues that pertain to the cost of the system and better coverage for Americans throughout our country.
But you would support, if you felt like there was a better plan in Congress, you would support repealing Obamacare and then inserting that better plan in its place? If
there is a better plan out there that we can prove that it's going to be an upgrade to what Obamacare does now, I will support that plan.
Let me ask, this is a personal question. You have a very interesting political vantage point. In my opinion, you were once a Republican, you became an independent, now you're a Democrat. Mm-hmm. Can I ask, do you ever regret that decision to become a Democrat? Do you ever miss your days as a Republican?
No, I don't miss my days as a Republican. I have nothing against Republicans. I think, having been one at one time, I know Republicans are good people. We all, as Americans, want to get our country stronger and make sure our citizens are well cared for and businesses thriving. I think we just have different ways of getting there. and different views on that, but that means that we have to sit down together and talk about them. My values haven't changed from when I was a Republican in the Arizona State Legislature. I'm still going to vote my conscience and the conscience of my district.
And I noticed in a lot of articles in doing my research today, you talk a lot about bipartisanship and working together. Naysayers would say, I mean, how can we do that right now? Everything just seems so partisan and so divided. Does it feel divided to you? And how do you think we can all come together, Republicans, Democrats, and everybody in between, and stop the gridlock and finally, get some stuff done?
Is Congress, there are a lot of partisanship? There is. There's no doubt about it. I don't like it, and neither do most Americans. That's why there are groups like the Problem Solvers, where I'm part of, the 22 Republicans, 22 Democrats that are working together. We meet every week to try to find other members that will join us, and other issues that we can work together on to benefit the common good. And then I'm also part of the New Dems, and the New Dems are a group of 60-some Democrats who are willing to also seek out Republicans to work with on issues particularly relating to tax reform and business issues.
Sure. Well, I mean, just in sheer numbers, I mean, you have to, right now, especially with the Democrats being the minority, I mean, you have to get things done, you have to work with Republicans.
Well, I don't think you don't have to do anything. I mean, even if your own leadership says you will do this, you don't have to do that. What you base your decisions on is what is in the best interest of our country. And working together, I think, is in the best interest of our country.
So you're saying always put country before party?
You have to.
Okay, interesting. Well, and I'm sure you have some colleagues in the House and the Senate who would say differently.
They don't represent Arizona's 1st Congressional District and my constituents.
Let me ask you this. Is Arizona, I mean, such a interesting and diverse state, that's how I'll put it. What issues do you think currently are impacting Arizonans the most today?
Well, the major issues that are before us in Congress, whether it's health care, budget reform, tax reform, our budget, this whole ridiculous concept of continuing resolutions instead of a real budget for Congress. Hopefully we'll get over that by the end of this month. Infrastructure and jobs. The American people need jobs, and particularly those people in rural areas that don't have a lot of the ability to have high-speed broadband and able to compete in the knowledge-based economy, but also are the people that provide our food, care for our highways, provide our water. We need rural America, we need rural Arizona to prosper, because these are the areas where much of our lifestyle comes from.
You brought up water. I've read that you're quite the water connoisseur.
I like to drink it once in a while, but yes, water policy is important to me.
Why is it so important?
Well, first of all, it's what we survive on. We all need it to drink. We need it for our streams and our creeks, and make sure we have appropriate supply for the balance between human needs and the other pleasures that we enjoy, which are our forests and